My name is Lissa, and I am a mom in technology. I am passionate about mental health and woman empowerment. As of right now, I am working with the community. I am the lead for the Facebook Developer Circles in Toronto, and I'm also a member for the Canadian Hispanic Congress. For the Facebook Developer Circles, my goal is to bring more women into technology to make it more welcoming. And for the Canadian Hispanic Congress, I actually work in different things. I do women in tech and also work on programs that are going to help with mental health. So yeah, that's what I'm working on right now.
That's a mouthful. You mentioned leadership. That's a huge aspect of everything that you're doing right now, whether it's in tech, whether it's about empowering women. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. So I think when it comes to, because I never thought about, oh, I'm going to go into this because I want to be a leader. I just did all of this because I really felt that I wish I had someone like that when I started in whatever that I'm working on. For example, when I started in technology, people will tell me, Lisa, if you really want to progress and be better in tech, then you need to go to communities and get involved with the people. So I tried it. And I also have social anxiety, believe it or not. I have it. So when I went, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't belong here.
Mm.
And people will talk about things that are so like they knew about their stuff, and I
Hmm.
felt like I didn't know anything. And I was like, yeah, like I go in there, nobody welcomes you, and I'm like, yeah, I don't feel like I belong here.
Mm.
So when I started that, like the Facebook Developer Circle, like when I became a lead, part of the leadership team, I was like, you know what can we do to make it more comfortable? Like if it was me to join this community, how would I like to be part of this? So I just created all of that. And yeah, eventually I became a leader somehow. And like again, like I wasn't even thinking about, okay, I want to be a leader of this. It's just, again, I really wanted to do something that I wish I had when I started. And same thing with mental health. Like, what are the things that I can do to make a positive impact? And, somehow that inspired other people and motivated other people as well. And I received so many great messages from people on Instagram and social media. So yeah, that's
Wow.
how it became when it comes to leadership.
That's right. You never know when you're going to jump into this role. It's sometimes it just happens naturally.
Yes.
Wow. So you had this imposter syndrome while you were there. What are some things that you did to make it more comfortable for maybe more women or just people who might see themselves as an imposter?
Oh, yes, 100%. So, for me, it was my own experience thinking that I wasn't doing enough, and I had a lot of self doubt, right? So, I will see that in people. Like, I will talk to them, like, I will talk to the community. It wasn't just like, of course, it started as let me put myself as an example and see if this works in the community. But then after I did that, I was like, okay, this worked, and what didn't work, right? And then I would talk to the community. I would be like, okay, so tell me about your story, and they will tell me. And then I will pinpoint the parts where I will see myself doubting myself, if you
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean.
Okay.
And I'll be like, there. And I'll be like, okay, so let me tell you this. This is what you've done. This is what you did. And this is how you're talking to yourself, because how you speak to other people about you, that's most of the time how you talk to yourself. So for
Mm-hmm.
example, I had a panel one time, and one of the speakers used to speak about her company, and she will be talking about the credits to her team, but she wouldn't talk about herself. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then when I went to the panel, I was like, I think that is beautiful that you actually give credit to your team, and that you know and that you're humble about it, that you can go where you are without other people. Like you can go to where you are alone. However, remember that the decisions that you made are your own. Therefore, you need to take ownership of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I will work on that with them, like in terms of like imposter syndrome. They'll be like, oh yeah, I haven't done enough. I was because of this person that I was able to do this. And I'm like, are you sure about that? Like, let me tell you, let me give you the list.
I
So
see.
yeah, so that's how I work with them. And I also share my story. I share my own story. And I think that when I became vulnerable, people connected with me. And I think somehow they felt like, oh, okay, so I'm not alone on this. And they will work on it themselves.
Wow. So putting yourself in that situation voluntarily is
Yes.
what helped you get out of your shell, it seems like.
Yes.
Wow.
100%.
That's cool. It
Yes.
sounds so frightening just to do, right? It seems like, why would you do that, right? But
Yes.
you can see the benefits as you're talking about it. You seem very,
Yes.
you feel okay with releasing this information. Is not something that you
Yes.
write in your journal and just leave it alone. But
Yes.
that's great. So for anybody
Mhm.
who's listening is like, hey, you could do this too. This is not this is not
It's
physics
not
or
easy.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's not easy to do. I'll tell you that. It's not
Hmm.
easy at all. And at the beginning, you would think a lot about, oh my God, what will people think? Like, I know I'm awkward. I'm such an
Mm.
awkward person. And I'm like, you know what? Just own it. Just be weird. Just love being weird. It's
Mm.
fine. That makes you unique. And I tell that a lot on social media. I'm like, yes, be that weirdo. Being a weirdo is what makes you different, right? So yeah, I would say like it is hard. Like again, when I started sharing about my mental health stuff, especially because I grew up in a culture where there's a lot of stigma,
Mm.
to me it was like, oh my gosh, should I? And trust me, a lot of people are going to treat you differently when you become vulnerable. But those are the people that are not meant to be in your life. So be vulnerable. It actually helps
Well,
you.
thank you. Thank you for that tidbit. I'm going to use that for my own self if I can. Well, thank you for breaking that down in such a very enlightening way. Like you said, it's
Mhm.
very hard, and I know you're being very optimistic about that pain, but I'm sure it took years to get to
Oh,
this part,
100%.
right?
100%.
Okay.
Yes.
Oof. And you're probably, like you said, you're working on it every day, probably. You're working on
One,
it.
yes.
It's never
And
stopped. Yeah.
yeah, it never stops. Like some days, that's the beauty of having a good circle too, having good people surrounding you because they constantly remind you the things that you're doing great. And that is why I'm the kind of person that I will tell people what I think about them, like the positive things, because
Mm,
we judge ourselves so much that they don't need to hear what is wrong with them because we already know, right? So
mm,
having that circle of people that are just like me, that bring the best of me by saying, hey, remember that you did this, that was amazing, and I got inspired because this of this. Like, it's not just saying words, it's actually telling them why and what do you see and how it helped you, if that
wow.
makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, having the circle, surround yourself with people that want to see you succeeding, because when they see that you are low, because every we have our moments, we have our
Hmm.
days, and these people are gonna come up to you with messages and they'll be like, hey, remember that you did this and that, and that brings me joy. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah, like that's how I honestly, that's how I go through it every
Hmm.
time it hits hard, you know?
That's great. So can you
Yeah.
tell us, like, how did you actually find this circle that you're talking about? Talking about this Facebook circle. For those who don't know, can you just share what that is?
Yes, so the Facebook Developer Circles is
Mhm.
a community of technology of developers in tech empowered by Facebook. So our goal is to bring events like workshops, speakers, and anything that is going to help developers to improve their skills. And yeah, so the community, so everything started there. I met a bunch of people that were like-minded like me. There's entrepreneurs as well.
Mhm.
But going back to your question in terms of like having genuine people, I would say that's a different, but kind of related, different in a way where, so the way that I found them was again by me being vulnerable,
Mm.
right? And when you are yourself, you will start attracting people that are like yourself. And for some time, it's gonna get lonely. Like you're gonna feel like nobody is like you. You're gonna be like, what happened to my friends? Like, why are they treating me different once I started being me?
Mm,
And again, what I said at the beginning is these people are not meant to be in your life. And then, of course, you're going to start meeting these people that are just like you. And that is what is important to go to different communities, like
mm,
the tech community. Like I met a bunch of people there that are like amazing friends of mine nowadays. And I also go into the Canadian Hispanic Congress where I have met amazing people and are part of my circle as well. So I would say just put yourself out there, find what you think you're gonna like, and
mm.
then figure it out. Like maybe you will like it, and if you don't like it, remove yourself from it.
Right. Keep trying
Mhm.
until you find out the right path for yourself, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Or make your own path, right? Like you said.
Or exactly.
Cool. So you're in this community. I'm just trying to see like the timeline. You're in this community. You meet different
Mhm.
people. You're vulnerable. You start connecting with people in this particular way.
Mhm.
Where does the whole mentally VR aspect start forming in your mind? Was it always there?
Oh, that's a really
Mm,
that's the story. Okay, so I started in virtual reality like 2 years ago,
mm,
and I fell in love with the tech. And I remember that because it was so new, there was no competitions, there was nothing out there. And one day I was scrolling through Facebook, and I saw that there was an event with the Facebook developer circles. They had like a virtual reality competition, a
mm,
hackathon. At the time, I was thinking about going to therapy. But again, the stigma, I was like, no, 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 I don't want to do this. I don't feel comfortable. So,
right.
what if I go to a group support, but I will always chicken out? So, at this VR hackathon, at this competition, the theme was community. The idea came there. I was like, what if we create a virtual reality environment where people have group support for mental health, like depression, and be anonymous in that room? Like, I will do that. Like, I will be down for it.
Mm-hmm.
So we created that and we won the competition. So in my head, I was like, I never thought like we will win because again, like, it's like mental health. I'm like, maybe nobody wants to talk about that, right?
Right.
And then we won, and that's when everything started. I was like, okay, there's a reason why I won. There's a reason why, Facebook invited us to go to California for the conference and learn more about virtual reality and the products that they have. So I was like, let's do this. So, I pushed through it. I was like talking to different people so they could give me feedback. And as an entrepreneur, when you come up with ideas, okay, when you talk to different people
Mm.
will either trash it or they will say, this is amazing.
Right,
And
right.
that's where you build residency. Is that how you pronounce that word? Residency?
You said it better than I can.
And then that's how you build it. And yeah, but again, like people will say, they will throw you questions like, how will this work? And sometimes you don't know. And you're like, wait,
That's good.
okay,
Yeah, I'm gonna think about that.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And then you're like, okay, maybe I can make it better. So it ended up from being for a group support to being anonymous psychotherapy sessions with psychologists.
Mm, that's so cool.
So yeah, so that's how it happened. And within 5 to 6 months, or 3 5 months, like I'm proud to say that I was accepted to be a Forbes under 30 at the startup hub. And I'm talking about like I am by myself. I don't know what I'm doing as an entrepreneur. I still don't know. I'm still figuring it out. And yeah, I was there, and it was an amazing experience.
Mm. So look at
Mhm.
you now. Now you're a role model for millions of young people out here, or just in people in
Thank
general.
you.
Look at that.
Thank you. Thank
What a,
you. I
what
appreciate
a
that.
transformation. You went from being shy to super vulnerable to being accepted. So
Yes. But again, it's hard to do. It's
yeah,
because
I can imagine.
somebody told me once, like, Lisa, like if somebody's hearing your story, people would think, Lisa, you are healed. You're good. Like that's why it's so easy. And again, I will say every day I deal with anxiety. I
Hmm.
still deal with depression, not at the level that I used to a few years
Hmm.
ago, but I still deal with it.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's something that you is it something that always exists? Is it always something like do people some people have this thought like it just goes away? Like
Hmm.
it just disappears. Like when you have a cold, oh you
Hmm.
get some vitamin C in you, you get some exercise, maybe you start eating differently. But with
Mhm,
depression or just mental illness, these are
mhm.
long-term things, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Especially because we are creatures of habit, right?
Mm,
And the negative thoughts, it's addictive. And because we're so used to it, it feels safe,
mm,
but it's not safe for you, right? But
mhm,
because it's so familiar, you have it there all the time. You have it there all the time. And I'll tell you that definitely doing physical activity, staying healthy helps. But and we have our moments. Like we have our moments where we're like, oh, I don't feel like, it could be anything.
mm,
Could be like you got a cold and you're feeling low, you don't feel like energized and you feel like you're depressed. But I think that depression, when you really, really have to look into it, and let me say, you say this, like therapy, you should go to therapy, regardless if you have depression, anxiety, or not. Like this is good for you. This is for you to stay healthy
mm.
mentally and emotionally. And but depression, when I really had to pay attention to it, was when I it started affecting my life. In what sense? I was not doing anything that was productive. I started thinking about that my life is worthless. So that's when you really have to pay attention to it. When people go quiet, I reach out to people a lot. I am that kind of person that I'm like, hey, I thought about you. I don't know why, but I'm just gonna say hi. And I'm like, I don't know, I haven't seen you in a while. Let me say hello. But it's because in my own experience, I'm such a I love to be happy. I love to laugh. I look for fun in everything.
Mm,
But then sometimes I go quiet and I don't say anything. I don't reach out to people. So I see myself there and I'm like, okay, when somebody's not talking to me like before, or they're not on social media like before, I'm like, hey, what is going on? I
mhm.
see you. Like I'm paying attention to you. So I would say that moment. So yes, it doesn't go away completely, but you learn ways on how to help yourself, if that makes sense.
I see. To manage it, right? To
Mhm.
to tame it, I guess
Yes,
even to
and
give it away.
yeah, and that's my experience, because some people do need to take drugs for that, because there's like a chemical. I'm not a doctor, but
Yeah.
I know that there's like a chemical thing happening in your brain that you do need to take these pills.
Right.
However, I am someone that would rather not take them, and I will find natural ways to
Mhm,
feel better before I jump into it. But don't ever feel bad for taking pills.
mm.
Don't ever feel bad. Like if you need them, go for them.
Right, right. Well, it's
Mhm.
great that you mentioned that because a lot of people who might be watching this might be the first conversation they have about this, right? Or maybe
Mm,
watch or listen to or two people talk about. And it just
mhm,
makes them a little closer to being relatable to what you're saying as far as like, oh, wait, I'm not the only one in this predicament. And wait a
mhm.
second, there seems to be other pathways to this. It doesn't just have to be the
One
misery,
way.
right? It doesn't have to be the
Exactly.
one way.
Mhm,
Thank you for sharing that. That's like priceless because you do come from a culture, like you said, or a community that
mhm.
had stigma against it. And
Yes.
as you, as a mom, you're passing down like, hey, no, this is not a stigma. It's
Mhm.
something that just happens, human nature,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Now they'll grow up and maybe they'll have kids one day and they'll share the same issue and slowly but surely it starts changing slightly,
Yes,
and for the
exactly.
better and for the better. In my
100%.
culture too, it's a very, very strong stigma. Like, yeah,
Yep.
it's like,
Yeah, like if you're crying, go to the corner. Deal with it.
yeah, like suck it up. Like you're gonna be
Yeah.
fine. And
Yes,
maybe,
exactly.
maybe that's what helped back then. Maybe. I mean, maybe I don't know
Mhm.
because every generation deals with things differently,
Yes.
and our generation is exposed to way more, you know, than we
Please,
were
yeah.
back
Yes.
then. They
Yes.
dealt with a lot of things that were new to their grandparents and their moms and
Mhm.
their fathers, right? But
Yep.
for us, we're experiencing like if you were to talk to my grandma about virtual reality, she'll just like
Exactly.
yeah.
Like, what's going on? Where did you bring me?
What do you mean we're going somewhere else? I want to stay right here. Why do I need to go
Exactly.
there to have fun? I gotta
Yes.
talk to people too. You crazy?
How does that work?
Yeah. You want me to put this on my face? You crazy? Yeah. So You know, I
Yeah.
got I got a grandmother who doesn't even like using the microwave. Never mind using VR,
Yeah.
because
Let's
it's
do it the old way.
yeah, it's taboo. We'll get the toaster or the frying pan, whatever it is. So
Uh-huh.
the reason why I bring that up is because parents these days, you being a parent, speaking one,
Yeah.
you
Hmm.
know, your kids are they're in this different world now, right? This virtual world that was kind of always there for a while, but now it's really virtual, right?
Is and it's more accessible.
It's more accessible to them. It's like it's literally on their devices now.
Yeah.
Do you ever have that worry that they're just gonna know some stuff that you just have no clue? Like you're just gonna
Oh,
feel like, oh
100%.
my God. Yeah.
100%. And I think that that goes more into like how I'm trying to parent my kids is like I am trying to be uh not a friend, but I want to be that person that they feel safe to talk to,
Mm,
if that makes sense.
that's
So
smart.
I want them to be like, yes, I am your mom and I'm going to put some rules because I am your mom. However, if you have a question, any questions, like I encourage it. If they're curious about something, sometimes they ask a lot of questions, and trust me, it drives me crazy.
But why? But why?
Exactly, exactly. And sometimes I don't even know the answer, and I'm like, you know what? It's fine to say that I don't know the answer, and I'm like, I don't know. Do you want to find out? You know what I
Ah,
mean?
so now it's a discovery aspect to it, you know?
Exactly. And I'm like, let's learn it together. And then
Mm,
they have this thing where we find out together what it is. And let's say that, one day I don't know about something. I'll be like, hey, I don't know this. Can I ask you? Hopefully they'll be like, I don't know either. Let's find out. But you never know. But you do your best in terms of that.
yeah. I mean, yeah, like you said, every day is like it's like little by little you're taking off the training wheels and you're just hoping that they could just ride on their own, right? But you're
Yes.
always gonna be mom, so it's
Yes,
you're not
exactly.
yeah, you can't give up that title, right?
Yeah.
Um, interesting. Thank you for sharing it. Some of my guests have also been mothers as well, and it's
Mhm.
interesting what they've been doing via lockdown. And what are some things that you keep saying to keep the kids not only happy but yourself happy? I know you said you exercise. Do your kids also take part in these exercises as well?
Oh, yes, they do. Sometimes they become my weights.
Yes.
Exactly. So sometimes I'm doing yoga and they
Mhm,
do the downward dog with me. It's so funny. Sometimes I don't even get to do 10 minutes. And
mhm,
you know what? I had to let go. At the beginning, it was hard because I was so used to like going to the gym. This is my moment
mm,
and I'm gonna do 1 hour of yoga. But then I had to be home and they interrupt me. They're hungry. They want to get this, they want to get that. They want to join me. And I'm like, oh my God, it was driving me crazy.
mm,
And I'm like, you know what? I need to change things up. Okay, maybe I can't do yoga in the morning anymore because they wake
mm,
up, super early. So I'm gonna have
mhm.
to do it at 9 p.m. when they're sleeping. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
it's like
Adjusting,
I
yeah.
can, yeah, exactly. And some days I do work out. I think, I thought about it. I was like, why not work out when they're seeing me so they can develop that habit of, hey, working out is part of your day. It's like
Mm,
eating.
yeah,
You know what
yeah.
I mean? So I was like,
Uh-huh.
you know what? I'm going to do it during when they're awake. So they see that is something that should be part of your
Ah,
lifestyle, if that
I
makes
like that.
sense.
I like that. I like that. I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, you're forging this new way for them to look up to, a role model, because that's what the kids do, right? They
Yeah.
just they see it and they're like, hey, I can do that too.
Yeah.
So
They follow.
that's
Yeah.
a huge force. Just about anybody who's doing anything is that people are always gonna look up to you, whether you think so or not. And these could be for positive things, negative things, or a little bit of both, you know.
Yes.
And you just never know who's looking at you, right? So
Exactly.
do you ever feel the pressure of having to be this role model?
Ooh, I love that, Austin. I love your questions. I'm telling you, I love it because 2 weeks ago I was thinking about that, and again, is the fact that I'm putting myself out there, and the
Mm,
fact that I still judge myself. I still have the imposter syndrome, even though I help other people, right? And I thought about it. I was like, damn, like, what if I do something that is not according to what I have always thought, if that makes sense?
change it
So
up
for
a little bit.
example,
Yeah.
exactly, and I was like, what if? And like, oh, what if I if I say something that is going to offend another person? And that's when I started being like, you know what? From the beginning, I have always been more like open minded. And that's when I'm like, I'm actually here to learn. I'm not looking to be perfect.
Mm,
And the person that I am right now at this moment can be someone different in 5 minutes by me just talking to someone and changing my perspective in different things,
mm.
if that makes sense.
That makes perfect
So
sense. Yeah.
when it comes to being a role model, I always bring the fact that I'm always learning, like your podcast says,
Mm.
evolving.
Ooh, thank you.
Well,
The
thank you.
interviewer came out of you. This is a great segue. Great segue for us to talk about your endeavor in podcasting world. How did that
Yes.
start? We get the tell people about it a little bit if you can.
Yeah, for sure. So mine, I will call it an Instagram live series.
Okay.
And yeah, so basically, I bring different people that have had different life experiences and that are doing different things today. And the reason why I started it is more selfish. I actually did it for myself because me talking to people that were doing great things and that were sharing their life with me was actually keeping me in good spirits.
Hmm.
And sometimes when I learn something from person A, I will share with person B. So sometimes I'll be like, wait, this person says something about this, but I couldn't quite say it exactly how that person said it. And I'm like, why not record these conversations and
Smart.
then just share it if something comes up? And sometimes I look back to the highlights just for myself. So yeah, basically I bring people that are going to teach me something new as well. They tell me about their passions, they tell me the things that they went through. So yeah, again, I did this more for myself. And then if other people can benefit, then that's great.
Win-win.
Yes.
Gotta have something for yourself, right?
Yes.
You do it live though. What's that
Yes.
like? What's that like? Because you
Oh
said that you have anxiety sometimes and this and that. How do you like come on, who you fooling here, huh?
so it's so funny because again, like I didn't want to be at first, like it took me months to finally start. Like I had the idea going on for months. It took me 6 months to finally be like, you know what, I'm just gonna do this. Like this being in my mind, I will always change my mind, like, okay, I'm gonna do it. And then I'll be like, oh, chicken out, I'm not gonna do it. And then I'll be like, oh, wait, I'm missing something, so I can't start. But then I was like, you know what? I'm done with trying to be perfect. It's not gonna be perfect. And I saw this quote because the people that I follow on Instagram are mostly people that are going to motivate me. So I saw this picture that said, "Your first podcast is gonna be shit. Your first episode is gonna be shit. Your first thing is gonna be shit. Like everything is gonna be shit. But if you don't start, you will never get better." And that's when it hit me. I was like, you know what? This is the
Hmm.
sign. This is a sign. And I did it again live because I'm the kind of person that likes to keep things real and raw. Like, because you made a mistake, you're human. So like if I see an interview, right, sometimes I'll be like, wow, this person speaks so perfectly. Why? You know what I mean? And it's because people edit it, and that's completely fine too, right? It depends on what your goal is in
Mm,
terms of like the podcast or series that you want to do.
yeah.
But for me, I wanted to be like, what if I was watching and one day I wanted to be interviewed by someone? I want to see that people make mistakes and it's totally fine. And that sometimes you're going to say things that you probably didn't mean and you weren't even thinking about it. And that's
Right.
completely fine too, you know? So yeah,
I love the beauty of that because that's how a natural conversation will go. You
yeah,
know, it's the authenticity. You know, it's the rawness. It's
yes,
like it's that. I think that's what podcast is good for. I like personally, I'm a little selfish too. I don't like to edit. I'll be honest with you. I'm not crazy about editing people's ums and everything else. I'm like,
just leave it.
this is yeah, just leave it. Like it's all good. Like I know I have a green
Yes.
screen behind me, but it's all good. I paid $1.46 for this. It's all good. The green
Yes.
sheet. That's all it is, people. It's nothing
Oh, that's
crazy.
beautiful.
So like I appreciate what you're saying because, and I
Mhm.
relate to it because I try to be so perfect. So I think 3 years ago I was
Same.
trying to do this perfectly, and I'm like, and I have friends telling me, no, you got to do it like this, and it's got to be like that. You got to edit it, and it's like maybe they're right. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I shouldn't have this raw thing out here because no one's gonna click on that. And it's
Mhm.
funny, like I've been doing like this grassroots kind of thing, like same thing like you, just reaching out to people, like, hey, I love what you did. Can we talk
Mhm.
about that? That's
Yeah.
awesome, you know. And
Uh-huh.
I guess that's how we found each other, to be honest with you. What you're saying is seems like it's true, and I'm believing it right now. I'm a believer now. This is crazy.
Yeah.
This is like you said, you put yourself out there, you're
Mhm.
alone a little bit, and then that moment comes after, you're like, wait a second, there's like a whole bunch of people like me, and
Yes.
you don't feel alone anymore.
Yep.
So wow. Okay. So you gave us a lot of stuff to work with. I'm looking at the time because I know you wanna you can edit this part out. This is fine.
It's fine.
How can you just take us through like maybe the science a little bit? How does the mentally VR work? Because a lot of
Mhm.
us I don't have any clue. So if you can
Mhm.
just maybe
For
shed some
sure.
light on it, that'd be great.
Sure, sure. So I, again, like I said, I don't have a PhD. I never went to college.
Mm,
I never went to college. However, I did look into how virtual reality affects your brain. So I remember, so I can't tell you exactly right now because there's like a bunch of things that have to do with how the brain works. But basically, is how, okay, so your brain perceive things through your senses,
break it down, Lisa. Yeah.
right? Okay, I'm trying to.
She's
And
doing good. Doing good.
in this case, for virtual reality, it does it through your eyes and through your ears, your hearing. Like for the regular Oculus, I mean the Oculus headset, for example.
Okay.
And what happens is that when have you perceive that through your eyes, you start to immerse yourself in it. I don't know. I honestly don't know how to explain it, but I can give you the link to
Okay.
where I read it. But basically, virtual reality on how the technology is makes you truly believe that you are in that immersed environment,
Mm.
which is obviously what virtual reality is.
So these are the moments like you see on like YouTube or TikTok or something where someone is in that world and they
Uh-huh.
feel like they're on a roller coaster or they feel like a shark's coming to eat them or something and they actually
Mhm.
react accordingly.
Yes, your body reacts to it, even though you are not feeling it. Because
Mm.
there's nothing that is moving. It's like the roller coaster. You don't
Hmm.
feel like you're in the roller coaster, but because of what you're seeing and you're
Right.
hearing is happening, you're
Wow.
like, oh, whoa, what the heck is going on? So for mentally VR, what I was trying to do was, so what for me worked was to, okay, so me to become verbal at the beginning. What helped was for me to be safe, to feel safe, whatever that I was, to
Okay.
feel at peace and safe. So I know that, those conversations that you have with your friends by the fire when you're camping,
Okay.
you start having like deep conversations about your childhood. And sometimes you start looking within you and you start talking about things that you don't really pay much attention because of life.
Mm.
So I wanted to create that. So I bring patients into a 360 environment of nature, and they can hear the birds singing, they can hear the wind blowing, and they feel at peace, they feel safe, and then they get into this moment where they want to start talking about what is going on inside them. And then
Wow.
when they're ready, they talk to a psychotherapist
Hmm.
while staying anonymous. So the psychotherapist cannot see them, but me as a patient, I can see my psychotherapist.
Mm. I say I can see that. Okay, that makes sense.
Mhm. And
Lisa, you're kind of like a shaman.
like a
Like a shaman, yeah.
what is a shaman?
You're like a spiritual woman.
Oh, I'm very
You're
spiritual.
able
That is true.
to connect people to the spirits, like to see to help them, kind of.
Yes, that's actually something that I'm looking to do. I'm gonna get my certification in meditation. So hopefully, so at the end of the day, like yes, I love virtual reality, but at the end of the day, my goal is to make an impact, a positive impact in mental health,
Mm,
whatever the way that would be.
that's awesome.
Hmm.
Wow. And where can people check this out? How do they go about this?
Say that again. Sorry.
Where do people find your work? How do they connect to it?
Oh, so all my work, all my projects are on my website. That will be lissang.com. So I have all my work there. I also have a website for Mentally VR, but as of how everything is happening with the pandemic and my life is going on,
Mhm.
it's on hold. It's
Okay.
on hold, but again,
Mhm.
I haven't given up. I'm still working on it every
Please
day
don't.
and
Please
looking
don't.
for, thank you, and
Mhm.
looking for ways to actually
Mhm.
put it out there.
Great. Let me know off air how I can be a help of that. If there's
Oh,
any way that you need,
100%.
if I had to share it with 500 people, let me know. I'll share
Thank
with.
you. Likewise with your work. Like again, I think your podcast is amazing. And the way that I know it is because of how deep all your questions are. And
Thank you.
I have to tell you, I have to give you credit for that. That actually inspired me to look into things in a different way when it
Mm,
comes to interviewing people. So
mm.
thank you for that.
Thank you. I'm not used to taking compliments, so I'm gonna say
I
thank you. I'm gonna
know,
keep it
I
raw. I'm gonna
know.
keep it raw.
Yes, love
Feel
it.
free. I feel lighter. I feel like I could breathe a little easier today.
Yes.
Well, hey, it is 11:30 ish, and I want
Uh-huh.
to make sure I honor your request. So we can do this
Thank
again.
you.
This is not
Yeah.
nothing. We don't have to cut it off here. I'm sure you have more stuff to share, and this,
Uh-huh.
this was a good snippet for people to see you. Right? Thank you so
Yeah.
much for your time and educating us and just sharing your story. We're definitely looking forward to doing this again. And yeah, thank you, Lisa. Appreciate
No,
you.
thank you so much for having me. It's been such an honor. Like I said, it's been very refreshing. Like I need it. Like the questions that you uh did to me, I was like, whoa, I really had to think about it again. And it was good. Like I feel good. So thank you for
You're welcome.
that.